You can now find me on RoadStr, the app connecting people through cars. Hello everybody, new car time once again on the channel. As you've probably guessed from the title, what I've bought is supposed to be a replacement for my Maserati Quattroporte. The truth is that I didn't intend to sell that car at all. To bring you up to speed, in case you haven't seen the video about a Ferrari FF, I went looking at the end of last year / early this year for something a little bit different, a car that was going to complement all the others I already have. But I had some troubles finding an example at a price I was willing to pay. While I was browsing Auto Trader, as we all do, an FF cropped up and I thought, wow, the Ferrari FF, I absolutely love those. What an amazing daily that would be. 3 Ferraris on the driveway. That's just incredible. That's not dream stuff. That's 2 levels beyond the dream. However, this was a bit more expensive than the car I set out to buy. But I had a good chat with a few different finance people and we thought it was actually very doable. I began to think though that perhaps running a Ferrari FF alongside the Maserati was a bit too extravagant and I could make a large saving if I sold the Mazda. I also began to worry that selling that car was going to be quite difficult, largely because every dealer I'd spoken to offered me either no price at all or one that was absolutely mickey taking. I think it's fair to say that I got cold feet at that point, and as it happened, I spoke to a couple of people I know, one of whom was on the look for a new car. He said that he was actually interested in buying a Gran Turismo. So I told him, well, look, why don't you try my Quattroporte, because if you don't like that, you probably won't like a Gran Turismo, and I think the Quattroporte offers much better value for money. So he borrowed it for a weekend and came back absolutely smitten. Even better, he actually lives just down the road from me, which means that the car can stay on the channel, giving you all the content and removing it from the driveway, which meant that I could free up a little bit of money and the FF was then going to be a bit of a more sensible decision. I thought this was a chance for me to be unusually fiscally responsible, but things went a little bit wrong because the Maserati had sold before I got the report back on the FF. I was absolutely convinced that there wasn't really going to be that much wrong with the car and that it was a done deal. I'd already left a deposit with the dealer of that particular car and I thought it was just going to go through no problems at all. Unfortunately, the car turned out to be a little bit of a pup. If you want to know more about that, there is a whole video on it, which left me with no sensible 4-seater whatsoever. As fun as it was, I think we can all agree that the Maserati wasn't the most sensible of daily drivers. So I decided that my next purchase really needed to be a car that I needed rather than one that I wanted. So, allow me then to introduce you all to my new daily driver, a Rover 75 diesel. Oh hell, I've done it again, haven't I? Curse you, man maths. Anyway, you all have a lot of questions. I have done my best to anticipate the most common ones, and I will answer them now. Any that I don't address, please leave in the comment section down below, and I will talk about them in a future video. First off, what is it? It's a 2013 Ferrari F12 Berlinetta. It's not a 4-seater, it's not diesel, and it's not a Rover 75. This, by the way, should not be a slight against the Rover 75, which, as it happens, is a brilliant car. The next thing you'll want to know is how much I've paid. I'm not going to disclose the sticker price, but as this is a car on finance, I'll tell you the numbers. I put £25,000 in as a deposit, which is a combination of money I got back from the Maserati and money I'd got set aside to do the bathroom that I've been promising my girlfriend I'll do for years, and we actually were really going to do that. But we got prices together for everything, and it would appear that every single builder in the country is currently taking the mickey, and all the parts we wanted for said bathroom were on a 6 to 9 month back order anyway. So she actually fully supported this decision. I'm then paying about £1,300 a month, just below, in fact. The significance of this is that because the Maserati went, which was also on finance, the actual extra that I'm paying versus that is about 600 quid a month, which is the figure I keep thinking about in my head rather than the 1,300. Man maths at its absolute finest, I'm sure you'll agree. The financing was done through Charles and Dean, who I went with because they have experience not just of this type of car, but also working with us pesky YouTubers. Occasionally, it can be somewhat difficult for us to explain to finance companies what it is that we do and how we earn our money, and I figured that they've already got experience of that, so it would be a worthwhile thing to do. As it happens, the person I dealt with there, Dean, thank you, Dean, is actually a fan of the channel. They were really easy, really helpful, made the whole process as simple as it could possibly be, to the extent that they will be joining the channel as a sponsor at some point in the near future, although I can't tell you more about that until I've gone through all of my financial training. They are very strict and by the book, which is good. The other person I need to say a huge thank you to is Guy, the previous owner, for a couple of reasons. First, he's made the entire experience as easy and as pleasant as possibly could be. This has been a better car buying experience than from many dealers. He had it fully valeted ahead of me collecting, and although in the interim it's only been cleaned by myself, my guy Jordan, the detailing doctor, will get on it soon, it was absolutely gleaming, in better condition than pretty much any car I've ever picked up. That being said, there are a few issues with it, and this is why I was able to get the car at a very favourable price. First off, I bought it privately, so we didn't need to pay any dealers any commission. If you think this car seems a little bit familiar, there's a very good reason for that. This is actually the exact same F12 that I drove and reviewed 2 years ago. Secondly, there are a couple of things that need tending to. You may have noticed some very odd stone chips down here. It would appear that the way Ferrari paint these bumpers is they paint a large section in body colour and then spray some of it black, which means when you get a stone chip, what comes through is in fact Rosso Corsa. It also needs the alloys refurbing, and the leather on the dash top here has shrunk and has come away. So these things all need fixing, none of them are particularly big issues. The other thing that made this car affordable was the fact it's actually got some miles on. I've looked at F12s with lusty eyes a few times in the past, but the biggest problem is that nearly all of them up for sale have about 6,000 to 10,000 miles on the clock, and for me that's a big problem, because when they're at that kind of mileage, they're still in that reasonably steep part of the depreciation curve, and because I do love to drive and use my cars, that's not such a good thing. I would lose a heck of a lot of money in a fairly short space of time. This one though, Guy actually used, so when I picked it up, it had just over 22,500 miles on the clock. Now it's on 24. I am also happy to report that neither the 550 or the 430 Scuderia had to be sold in order to make room for this. There will be updates coming on both of those cars, but they've each been away for quite some time for reasons both good and bad. So when they finally do return, there will be a big update on both of them. In terms of what I'm actually going to get for the next daily, a Rover 75 really is in the running. Actually, the MG ZT Tourer is in the running because there's a car I've got a little bit of a soft spot for. If I could find one with the Mustang V8 in, I'd be rather tempted by it, even though I know that one of the other engines is probably the sensible choice. That I'll probably be buying in the next month or two. I've got a couple of other things to get out of the way first. The Z3 will be going off in about 24 hours to be sold. Then I need to get the Citroen done up, and that moved on as well. And once those are dealt with, that's when I should have a little bit more free capital to buy something that will be my actual sensible daily driver. In the interim, I have a number of press cars coming, so that sort of covers daily duty if I need multiple seats from now until I can get something for myself. Running costs is a topic that seems to crop up every time you talk about Ferraris, and I can tell you a little bit about this one. In terms of insurance, I really don't know how much it costs, because for the last few years I've had a trade policy which just covers me on anything up to a set value. This is not the most expensive car in the collection, so there wasn't any need to alter the policy. Fuel really is as bad as you might expect, and at current prices, yes, it's painful. It's in fact a combination of both crippling fuel economy and also a fuel tank that's actually smaller than in either the 430 or the 550, meaning I'm only getting about 250 miles between fill-ups. I made the mistake of calculating the economy the other day, and driving perfectly sensibly, doing mostly motorway miles, you get 15.5 to the gallon. Weirdly, a lot of people have also asked me about the cost of tyres on this car, and those are an interesting topic. The last time I drove this, it was on its original Pirelli P0s, and it was rather a handful. Happily, it's now sat on Pilot Sport 4S, and they are vastly better. In fact, this car now grips in the wet better than it did in the dry last time I took it out. The difference really is that pronounced. Oddly though, several people have already asked me how expensive the tyres are for this car. I've never ever had that with any car ever before. Maybe it's because they just look so vast and impressive, but the truth is they're not actually that bad. It's around £1,000 for all four, which is pretty good. Servicing is another thing that's a little bit difficult to talk about accurately, because these cars, as with the 458 and everything after, came with Ferrari's 7-year maintenance plan. So the first 7 years, servicing is covered by Ferrari. Only one service has been done while Guy owned this car, and that was about £1,600 and was the large service. The next one, provided nothing is broken, is less than £1,000, which is not so bad, I think. So what's the plan with this car? Am I going to try and keep 3 Ferraris? And what does it feel like to have 3 Ferraris? First off, at the moment, there is no immediate plan to certainly sell this car. It was genuinely a happy accident even buying it. And the thing about the F12 is best summed up by one of my friends who I let drive it. He took it out for a day, and when he came back, I said to him, "What do you think of it?" And he said, "It's complicated." And he's absolutely correct. Many other cars, you drive them for half an hour and you know exactly what they're all about. You spend 10 minutes in a Scuderia and you've got a real measure of the car. Same with many others that I've driven. But these sorts of cars, and they're very different from, say, the 550, they have many layers to them. I've driven it now for about a month and I still don't feel like I've really got what it's all about, what it's capable of. And that's actually really quite exciting. And the first time in a long time I feel like there's a car that I've really got to work with to get the best from. So for that reason, I intend to enjoy it as much as I possibly can. There is a chance by the end of the year it will be sold. There is also a chance that it will stay around for a very long time. At this point, I genuinely don't know which it's going to be. Feel free in the comments to place your bets. As for how it feels to own 3 Ferraris, slightly scary, to be honest with you. I still don't think it's actually set in. In all honesty, I don't think owning 1 Ferrari has actually set in, because for a very long time it was the sort of thing that other people did. This one also does not have a warranty on it. Guy did have it with the original Ferrari warranty because he got it from a Ferrari dealer, but he found that it didn't really cover either of the things that actually broke, which were both fairly minor. It had a tensioner at the front fail and the rear high-level LED light failed. Between the two of those, that was about £1,000. So £1,000 of repairs over but 2 and a bit years and 15,000 miles that he had this car, I think is pretty good. So for that reason, he didn't choose to extend the Ferrari warranty. If I had got it with that on, I might have kept it going, but as I haven't, and it's really expensive, I think I'm going to chance it on this one. That could turn out to be a mistake later on. Place your bets on that one as well if you like. There will of course be a lot more content to come on this car. But before I go, there are a couple of important points of order. I was a YouTube viewer a long time before I was a YouTube creator, so I know exactly what it's like to be on that side of the lens. And I remember very well when I was starting out in YouTube and I saw several other YouTubers buying a whole bunch of different supercars, and I thought, you know, you're just out of touch now. Your problems are not mine. But there's a couple of things I want to say here. First off, just because this car is now here, please do not think for even a moment that I am going to be leaving the affordable and accessible car world behind. People said this when I got the first Ferrari, that I was just abandoning usable, cheap, practical and accessible cars. And the fact is, nothing could be further from the truth. I have as great an appreciation of those as I ever have. The fact I'm now able to afford something like this doesn't really change anything for me. And I am also very consciously aware that it is you that have enabled me to have this. So allow me now to say thank you, and allow me to say something a little bit more personal as well. I get messages all the time from people thanking me for what it is that I do, when really all you ever need to do is just to keep watching. That for me is thanks enough. But it's still really, really nice to receive these messages, particularly from people that may be going through some hard times, and I know there's been an awful lot of that lately. But the fact is, this channel is a lot of things to a lot of people, including to me. One day I'll talk a little bit more about my life over the last few years, but when I say that doing this has been a real tangible help to me, I really do mean it. And I don't just mean in terms of putting nice cars on the driveway. Yes, it's lovely and it's wonderful and all that, but long before these were around, YouTube really was doing things for me that I didn't think were actually possible. And eventually I'll explain what it is that I mean by that, but I just want you all to know that your support means far, far more to me than you may realise, certainly for quite some time. This car I intend to use like all of my others, for my own personal enjoyment of course, but also taking it out as much as I possibly can and try and, in some small way, bring a little bit of light, a little bit of levity to anyone's day. I've already had a lot of people who've sat in this, some of whom have driven it or just seen it, and nearly all have had a smile on their face. Apart from that one bloke in the Vauxhall Frontera, it wasn't a smile, and it wasn't quite a wave, or at least he wasn't using all of the normal fingers. But apart from him, everyone seems to really enjoy the F12, and I intend where I can to use it and the opportunities this channel has brought me for good in every way that I can. That, I think, is enough from me on this car. I'm sure you'll have some questions, so if you haven't asked them already, now's your chance. Hop into the comment section down below. A big thank you to you for watching, continuing to support the channel, to Guy for selling his lovely car to me, for Jordan, my detailing doctor, who's going to be looking after it very soon and carrying on the good work that Waxworks did. Fantastic job they did on the car. To Charles and Dean, the finance people, and everyone else, I suppose. Bye.